Welcome to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. Hey, that's me. Hi, and welcome to Positive Talk. Our show features the best positive stories and people from around the globe as we endeavor to answer the universal question of why am I here and what is my purpose? Understanding that can change everything, and knowing your greatness is fundamental to living your best life. So join us right now as together we work to create the adventure of our lifetime. And welcome to Positive Talk, everybody. I've got a great... I know. I say that every time, but this time I mean it because we have... Let me put it another way. We have a very impactful show, and the idea behind this show is to highlight a group of people that are working together for the betterment of people who've gone through grief and widowhood and losing a spouse and all of that. First of all, I'd like to welcome Michele. She's going to be my sidekick for today. How are you, little one?
I am doing well. Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us in. We have an amazing guest today that we are honored to have with us.
You know, I know that you are learning how to and working to be in sales and entrepreneurship and things like that. And one of the things about entrepreneurship is you always are looking for things that are not being done or services that are not being provided. And so
Right.
you think to yourself about how you can find these things. And sometimes, unfortunately, these things find you. And that's the story behind what happened with Michele Neff Hernandez is our guest today. And she is the CEO and head bottle washer for Soaring Spirits International. And there's a whole reason by why all of that happened because something tragic happened 15 or 16 years ago, if I remember. Michele, welcome to the show. You are such a joy to have here because of the impact that you're making in the world.
Well, I love being with you all, and it's really lovely to meet you, Rochelle, to share this time with you. So thank you for having me. I just love being here, so it's easy.
Well, I'm glad. I'm glad we make it easy for you because, and people are saying, okay, so what was it? And I'll tell people that when you got a phone call and you were told that your husband had been hit in a bicycle accident, and you went to him, and he ultimately passed, and you were alone and going through a lot of troubles and difficulties, and I'm paraphrasing, so correct me if I'm wrong, and you then tried to find a group of people who could understand where you were coming from, and there was no such thing. And that's why I say you created something out of thin air because of the necessity in your own life to do that. And so you created a group for widows and widowers of people who have lost their spouses, and an entire a plethora of programs. You even had a golf tournament, for heaven's sake. So
That's right. Whatever it takes to get the work done.
exactly. So you've when you started doing this and you started looking for support, there wasn't any out there, really, was there?
You know, it's interesting that we're meeting today because the anniversary of Phil's death, which actually it's been 19 years on Saturday.
Right.
So this is the week we call the death anniversary week, and sort of all those memories, right, of this time of year. And this time 19 years ago, he was still alive, but only for a short time longer. So I think what you said is so true, which is sometimes we go out seeking the work, and sometimes the work lands on our doorstep, and we get to make a choice about whether or not we're willing, to be the change that we want to see in the world. So there were definitely support groups and things available. The trouble is, in your early grief, it's really difficult to find the energy to search for something that's a really good fit for you. And so the things that I found just weren't good fit for my 35-year-old self, who was parenting a blended family of 6. And so what I wanted was to find other widowed people to be in community with. And my hope for every widowed person is that they have a therapist, they have a support group, they have an active church group, if that's something that, fills their heart, that they have a family that supports them. But even if you have all of those things and you still have, an exponential number of hours to fill during the week. And so week to week and between support sessions of whatever type you might have, having a community that is available by text, that is available through a variety of opportunities for in-person online connection, helps you realize that you don't have to walk this really difficult road alone. And, we as a community have talked more and more about the epidemic of isolation and loneliness that, was kind of highlighted during the pandemic, but which has been a part of sort of the narrowing of our social groups. And nothing is more isolating, in my opinion, than grief. You feel like you don't have any energy to do anything. And so if the resources that you need are difficult to find, the likelihood that you find them drops exponentially, because you are already in the midst of an energy-sucking, soul-sucking experience. Doesn't leave you with a lot of ability to seek things out. And so Soaring Spirits International is the organization I founded 3 years after Phil died. So we've been doing this work for 16 years, and it really came from that deep desire to make it easier. Like, it has to be easier for a widowed person. And just to be clear, we define a widowed person as anyone who's experienced the death of the person they thought they were going to spend their life with. So it's the broadest definition of widowhood, in order to make sure that everyone's included, that there isn't somebody who hears about our programs and thinks, oh, but it's not for me. If your person died, you thought that was going to be your person for your life, then you are welcome in our programs. And those programs are all designed to help widowed people, one, find a community of support, but two, access resources and programs that are custom designed for the widowed experience.
That's one of those things, suddenly becoming a widow or a widower, that is, it's like, surprise, here I am, and I have no idea how I got here, and so it's important for people to be able to just pick up the phone or to go online and know what they're know of a group. So I would highly recommend, and Brichelle, grab a pencil. I highly recommend that you write this down, which is soaringspirits.org. And you hate to say it, keep it in case somebody dies, but for heaven's sakes, it happens.
Yeah.
There's only one way out. Yeah. Yeah. Well, and here's the other thing. Like, the thing I love about being able to share the resources here on Positive Talk Radio is that everybody knows somebody. So, this resource may not be for you, but it could be for your neighbor. It could be for your coworker. It could be for a family member. It could be somebody that you meet tomorrow. And so often when you meet a widowed person, death is the thing, right, that can't be undone. And the finality of death is one of the things that makes people feel often so helpless in the face of someone's grief, because you can't fix it. There's nothing you can do to change what has happened when someone died. And so many times that inability to feel like you can do anything makes people step back from a grieving person because they're afraid to engage, because they don't want to hurt they don't want to hurt you. They don't want to say something that, might be harmful or make you cry or make you feel worse than you already feel. And so sometimes they'll just say nothing. And that's not to say saying nothing is not sometimes exactly the right thing to do, but saying nothing without reaching out, right? So it's the difference between standing with someone in their grief and not needing to speak, or not approaching anyone or saying anything because you're so afraid they're going to say the wrong thing. And so what we love about being able to share our resources is that it helps people who are not widowed feel less helpless in the presence of people who are. Because instead of feeling like you don't have anything to offer, you can say, I heard about this organization when I was listening to Positive Talk Radio. It made me think of you, and I thought it might be helpful. So it's that easy to make a connection to Soaring Spirits for someone in your network who could benefit from having a group of people who understand what it's like to have to really literally rebuild your life from nothing. Many people have heard the Holmes and Ray stress inventory. It's the stress inventory that's quoted in everything you've ever, heard about stress. They rank all of these life experiences. How stressful are each of these life experiences? The number one most stressful life experience is the death of a spouse or partner. And I want to be clear, that's not to say that it's the most impactful grief experience. Nobody can know what that is. And so it's not about that it's a bigger grief experience. It's just that your partners, the partner relationship touches your finances. It touches whether or not you're parenting. It touches where you live. It touches your social network. And because it crisscrosses so many different areas of your life, when all of those things are in chaos, the stress level skyrockets. And so for people who are interacting with someone who's widowed, being able to just provide even a little bit of support and comfort can reduce that stress and provide someone with the opportunity to connect with a life-affirming organization that will help them have the tools and resources available to build their lives again. And there's nothing more impactful than witnessing that. It's been truly the privilege of my life to do this work.
Well, and first of all, thank you for doing it. It's important. It's important work because you can help a lot of people. But I was just thinking what you were saying about stress, and it starts at the very beginning of your day.
Yes. From the beginning to the end. Yeah, absolutely.
Because
And it's every day, right? Like, it's literally every day.
you wake up and you look over where that your person used to be, and it's like, oh crap, they're still not
Still
here.
still dead. Like, that's the that's the thing, is, like, every waking is, like, a confirmation, "Oh, right, they're still dead." And I still in the early grief, this is another thing for people to know. It's never too late to send people to Soaring Spirits. So if you're thinking to yourself, "Oh my gosh, I wish I had been able to tell my sister or my brother or my neighbor or whomever about this, but I didn't know because it was 8 years ago." There's no wrong time to tell them, partly because one thing that happens is if you have been widowed, many people in your network will start sending widowed people to you. So let's say you've been widowed for 15 years and someone recently is widowed and they think, "Oh my gosh, who could I connect you with? Oh, I know, so and so was widowed 15 years ago." And so it's always good for widowed people to know we exist, because I promise you they are a resource for other widowed people. But also, it's never too late to be able to make meaning from an experience that completely altered your life. And there's nothing small about widowhood. Many people have the expectation 365 days. You just, you're going to make it through the first year. And once you've done that, pretty much things are going to start going back to normal. And what happens is that widowed people inadvertently confirm that, because we start feeling like we're not allowed to talk about it anymore. And that there's a space where, okay, people expect you to be done. And because of that, we stop talking about it, which makes those people think, "Oh, see, they are done. They don't even talk about it anymore." But it doesn't feel safe. And many people will start saying things to you like, "It's time to get over that, time to get past that. They're still dead, so you're going to have to let it go." And the truth is, I am never going to be okay with the fact that Phil's dead. Never. I'm not okay with it now. It is a part of my reality, though. It is what I live with. It is what I carry. And if I can find a way to integrate his love and his loss also into my life, then I have the best opportunity to truly heal and to be able to use the things that I learned through grief to improve my current life, and to be able to support the people around me as they make their way through whatever difficulties life brings, if it's specifically grief or it is other challenges that are other traumas. What you learn grieving someone you love has lessons that are applicable for the rest of your life.
Yes, they are, and they need to be. Rochelle, have you ever heard of this group before?
I have not. And after quite a bit of the death I've dealt with in my family, just makes me think of my grandma and even my great grandpa, who
has lost quite a bit. And even though it's been so much time, it's that loneliness you talked about, Michelle, and just kind of the loss. Like you wake up and there's not much in you that really wants to try to do anything anymore, because they were everything that you felt like you lived for, and they take a complete piece of you. So yeah, I'm so thankful that you created something that is so impactful and so helpful just for any and everybody that has gone through something like this. And I will definitely be sharing it with my family. So thank you.
You know, Michelle, it's interesting. The older and more seasoned that I get, I am discovering things like there was a time when I was sitting at the dining room table and my mom and dad, my aunt and uncle, my grandmother and grandfather were all there. And I looked around and I was thinking to myself, holy mackerel, at one point, there's not going to be these people aren't going to be here anymore. And lo and behold, that came true. And what's happening at Michelle's time in life right now at like 25, it's like the turnover of the generations. And then the next generation comes, and now I'm that generation. My sister and I, my my brother's gone, my mom's gone, my dad's gone, and it's just my sister and I. And then we've got the kids at the next generation. So it's like, holy crap! It's
The turning of the wheel, friend. It's the turning of the wheel.
but you know what I mean? It's like, but it never gets any easier. My high school sweetheart is gone. My best friend from high school is gone. A bunch of people that I know. It never ends, and we have to learn how to deal with it, and we have to learn how to deal with it together. I think, and that's why your group and what you do is so important.
Well, and I think it's also really important for us to remember, the people we love who have died, we carry with us. That's the best of it, right? Is that if we can consider all of the people we love to be a part of who we have become because of the way they loved us, because of the relationship we shared with them, complicated as it may be, I like to say that because, a lot of times the conversation around grief is focused on people who had a really positive experience with their person. And there are many of us who did not, who, for whatever reason, lived in a very complicated situation. But to know that what we have learned through the connections we've made with other people, to carry that with us as we move through life, means that we're getting richer and richer and richer. But it's only if we allow them to be part of our life, because so often society's way of dealing with this is stop thinking about it, don't talk about it, and make sure that you are good, right? All you need to do is show a positive face and people are like, oh, great. Okay. You must be fine. And so, right. We're expected to do that. And oftentimes the definition of healing is, oh yeah, you're back to your regular self. Everything's great. Well, there's no going back. There's no regular self. There's only a new self that has absorbed whatever the lessons are of this particular trauma, this particular loss, this particular person who is no longer on earth, how they impacted you changes who you are. And so each and every time we are a new iteration of ourselves. If we could normalize that, and Rochelle, it makes me just so happy that you are here and that at your age, as you're entering into this new sense of where your career is taking you and where you may take your life, to be able to have the idea that everything you're going to learn, every person who is in your life now, who won't be in your life at some point because of our mortality, is always going to be a part of what's next for you, is a beautiful way to carry yourself. Because don't ever let anybody convince you that you're supposed to forget anyone or that you're supposed to cut that stuff off, because it's impossible. And so we set ourselves up for failure every time we do it. And instead we ask ourselves, what's wrong with me? Why can't I stop thinking about this person? Why do I continue to carry this pain? Why is this hard on an anniversary? Why after 19 years is Michelle still talking about this man she was married to for 5 years who really changed the course of my life? And so why am I still talking about him? Because I still love him. I'm still not okay that he's dead. And he has exponentially changed my life, not only when he was alive, but through his death. His death changed my life and continues to change my life every single day.
Michelle, I was struck by what you said a little bit earlier about people who come up to you and you're hiding the fact that you're still in grief.
Mhm.
And part of that, and I need to take a break, and I want you to answer this when we come back. But isn't part of that they're saying to themselves, "Whew, now I don't have to bring it up. I don't have to worry about it because clearly they're getting over it now. So I can just leave it be," which isn't true at all in many cases. We need to take a quick break. We'll be right back. We're talking with Michele Neff Hernandez. Go to soaringspirits.org. She's the boss. She's the boss lady. It's really cool to be talking to her. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Positive Talk Radio. We're going to take a short break to tell you audio and music creators about our commercial affiliate, Lyric Vids, specializing in creating amazing and engaging lyric videos. Are you looking to promote your videos in the most engaging way, but you don't have an animator and an editor? Whether you're an artist, musician, or business with a message to share, our lyric videos are designed to hook viewers and amplify your reach. Go to positivetalkradio.net/lyric vids. That's positivetalkradio.net/LYRICVIDS now to get started. Welcome back to Positive Talk Radio. We hope you enjoyed learning about our affiliate Lyric Vids, who specialize in creating captivating animated lyric videos. Now let's get back to the show.
And welcome back to Positive Talk, everybody. I love the fact that when I play that song, people are like, what the hell is he doing? And then they get into it a little bit, and then you can see their head bobbing. And it really is cool. I love doing that. And it wakes everybody up and makes them feel really good. We've got a great guest who is dynamic. She's got, do you know the names of all the people? And do you ever stop and think when you get everybody in a room or a big room? Do you ever stop and think, holy crap, 16 years ago, none of this existed. Yeah, had it not been for me, none of this would have happened.
Changing the world is a team sport. So I always think when I look at all of the people who have been helped by Soaring Spirits about how grateful I am for all the people who believe in this mission, because it would not be possible without all of them. And so really the way I look at it is each person whose life has been changed has felt called to change the next person's life. And they have built this beautiful community of support because they're willing to engage and to come back and reach out to another person. So I don't really think about my role in that so much as I think about what an amazing gift it is to have so many people who just are like, I'll help. I want to help too.
But I want everybody to know this, that, and if you're sitting out there and you're having a conversation with yourself, should I be doing this? You think you have a niche, you think there's something that you want to do to give back and to contribute to society, and you're sitting there going, should I, shouldn't I? And I want you to think in terms of, yes, you should, and then other people will join you. And then it gets bigger than you. I remember the first time Michele and I had the opportunity to talk several years ago. She was still wrapping packages for stuff
That's true.
on like a Friday night before this event that was happening on Saturday. And now she's got people. Now, having said that, I'm still willing to bet that you're up at Friday night with those people.
Oh, I was going to say the package making still continues. As you said, head door, like head window washer, like head, do all the things that need happening. But what has become super clear is that the conversation around grief literacy, which is being able to engage in conversations about grief in meaningful ways that are not harmful to grievers, and the opportunity to continue to offer people who want to give back through widowhood a place to do that in so many different ways continues to be a calling that just drives me to keep trying to do it. I will not pretend it's easy, and especially funding nonprofits. When I started this, I thought I was going to be helping widowed people. That was my goal. What I forgot was that you have to fund what you're doing to help people. So, what I end up doing most of the time is working to figure out how we can keep these programs going, because people will be surprised to hear in the US alone, 2,800 people are widowed every single day. So today, by the end of this day, 2,800 people will be widowed. And that is only in the US. That doesn't touch the worldwide population. And so, though Soaring Spirits has served 5 million widowed people over our 16 years, that's not even a drop in the bucket to how many people are actually in need of support and in need of a community to be able to help them rebuild.
2,800 people a day. That's,
Every day.
when you start looking at statistics like that, it's frightening.
It's a reality of our mortality, right?
It is indeed. And Rochelle, when you're 25, you're like bulletproof, right?
A little bit. I mean, you seem to be some days, and other days you just feel like a translucent wall that can't really stand to handle anything. So it just depends on the day. There's even weeks that go by that tend to be pretty rough.
Yeah.
I mean, when I was a kid, when I was your age, it was like I was bulletproof. I could do anything.
Oh yeah, in that sense. The world is mine.
Well, and I want to say too, like I want to answer Kevin's question, because the question of whether people are just relieved to think that grievers are done, right? Because here's the thing, there's out of order deaths, right? There's 25-year-olds, 23-year-olds. The youngest person who's ever come into our programs was 18. So we have 18-year-olds whose boyfriend died. And what everyone's telling her is, honey, it's okay. You're going to get a new one. As if the life of that person doesn't matter, right? And for young people who experience a death, an out of order death, much earlier than anyone would expect someone to die, they so often hear, just pacify. It's fine. You're going to be fine. You'll get a new one. It's all going to be good. As if what you are experiencing is not life-changing like it would be for someone who was married for 50 years. And so, to answer your question, Kevin, I think that people don't know until they know. And I love to approach life thinking the best of people. And so my hope is that people who think you're going to be done in 365 days just don't know better. And because we don't feel safe talking about it sometimes, we reinstate over and over again that misconception that it's possible to be done in 365 days. So what really needs to happen is people like me who are further along need to be able to represent for the people who aren't able, but just don't have the energy. A year into my widowhood, I don't care what you think of me. I don't care if you think I'm done. I'm not interested, but I don't feel safe with you, which means I'm not going to speak to you about it. So for people who are further along, we get to say that was really hard. And what could have made it easier was to be able to be allowed to grow through my grief with the support of the people around me, rather than them encouraging me to get over it. I was told probably 6 months after my husband died that I was lucky to be a young widow, because that would mean I could be married again soon. And again, I was like, my husband's not a baseball trading card. Like, I'm not going to turn one in and get a new one. I go just blown away by the concept. But I know for sure that the person who said that thought they were offering me comfort. And so it's a job I enjoy and take seriously, to represent for other widowed people, so that maybe someone who's listening today won't say to another widowed person, you're going to get someone else, thinking that that's comforting. It's not comforting. It's the opposite of comforting. And so it seems logical when we're talking about it, the three of us right now, but in the moment when people don't know what to say and they're faced with a widowed person who maybe they're 25 and there's no world where anyone thought they were going to be widowed, and the only thing they can think to offer as comfort is, don't worry, you're going to get another person. And so if we can change that for the listeners today, we've already made a difference in the world.
I have to tell you this just real quick. I have not had a spouse die, and I can't imagine the grief that I would feel if that were the case. But I did have a spouse decide to leave because as they say, the pasture was greener somewhere else, if you know what I mean. And so I told my cousin this, and he goes, "Wow, that's pretty cool. Now you can go after a 35-year-old." And it's like, oh, you're so gross. You know what I mean?
Can you just acknowledge my trauma, please, and not try to take it away and give me something else in place of it?
Hubba, hubba, hubba. You can go after a 35-year-old now. It's like, oh, man.
Right. And it's a similar thing in that he doesn't know what to say. And so what he says is the first thing that comes into his mind, which apparently is that. So we'll leave that as it is, but still it is similar. You are in pain and I don't know how to respond. And I'm going to say something that feels like it could be hopeful for your future. And the challenge there is people have a hard time sitting with someone who they can't fix. There's nothing that can fix what's happened. And so what do I do with not being able to fix? We live in a fix-it world. How do I fix it? What can we do? How do we get better? What do you need to take? What process do you need to get through? Where do I start? Okay, begin right now, because we're not comfortable sitting in pain, and life can be painful.
When we come back, we're going to talk to Michele about her programs specifically and some of the programs that they do that's starting to become a national thing. It was a regional thing. Now it's getting even bigger. So Michele Neff Hernandez is with us. Michele is here. And thank you, Michele. The reason I invited you is because I wanted you to learn some of these things that somebody who's a little older and has been through what Michele has been through, because you have got great promise in your life. You can do incredible things, just like Michele is in the process of doing. You're listening to Positive Talk. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Brushwood Media Network, the best in syndicated talk, news, and entertainment shows.
As you go about your daily life, look closer. As you gather with family and friends who love and support you, look closer. There are youth right in your community who don't have the home, warmth, and healing you have. So look closer. Every year across America, a staggering 4.2 million youth are homeless or trafficked. And for 50 years, Covenant House has worked relentlessly to keep them safe and protected. Tonight, 2,000 young people will sleep safely in a Covenant House bed. And tomorrow, they will wake up surrounded by love. They get clean clothes, hot meals, medical care, and a safe place to sleep. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. In sites across America to help them fulfill the great promise of their lives. So look closer at Covenant House. To help or get help, go to covenanthouse.org.
And welcome back to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. That's me, whoever that is. And Michele is with us. Michele Neff Hernandez is with us. And she is in charge of soaringspirits.org. And you do things, you got programs and resources that are really cool. The one I want to talk about is the group that you put together, and you have weekends, right?
Well, it's exciting that we're talking about this because we're making some changes.
Oh,
We, as you said, we started regionally. So we started with a program called Camp Widow. I recognize that some people will think to themselves, what in the world is that? And why would anyone want to go to it? And the answer to it is it's a blend between a conference, a retreat, and we like to tell people a high school reunion because we use elements of all three of those formats to create a space where widowed people have access to really specific workshops and an opportunity to be together as they access these tools to recreate their lives, because that is the work of widowhood. Your life has completely changed, and now you have to figure out the big question, what's next? And so Camp Widow was designed as a weekend long. It started in 2009 in San Diego, California, and then extended to Florida. So we were in Tampa, Florida, and then extended to Toronto, so Toronto, Canada, and then extended to Brisbane, Australia. And so we had 4 events happening each year. And what we realized was that though we did have a good number of events, people would not be able to find us for a variety of reasons. They couldn't afford the travel. They couldn't get away from work. They have children they're caring for, or parents, older parents that they're caring for, even pets that they just couldn't find someone to help them for that long of a time to care for them. And so this year, coming up in 2025, we have adapted the Camp Widow model to be a one-day event, and we'll be crisscrossing the country, beginning in Los Angeles, California, for an LGBTQ plus specific camp. So that will be a one-day program for the queer community of widowed people. And then we'll be in Houston, Texas. We'll be in Seattle.
Ooh.
On April 26th, 2025. So we may even be able to meet in person, Kevin.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
And then we'll be in Chicago, Illinois, and Washington, D.C. So the program has adapted to be a one-day program to reduce the barriers to access and to be able to take the program on the road in a really meaningful way that will allow us to serve more widowed people, lower the costs for registration. Camp Widow is the only program that we charge for. And so we will have even more widowed people across the country. But not only that, coming to Seattle, for example, provides us with an opportunity to increase support for widowed people in the Seattle area. And that is going to be the work of 2025 and beyond, which is taking our programs to new cities, introducing ourselves there, creating partnerships with local organizations who are also supporting grievers, introducing ourselves to Chamber of Commerce's and community foundations, leadership in the area, so that we can make sure people are aware of the resources that Soaring Spirits offers, because clearly with 2,800 widowed people every day, they are spread across our great country, and being able to provide service for widowed people from all walks of life in every area truly is the heart of the mission of Soaring Spirits.
Tell me you're not going to go to every city and do everything yourself.
I have an incredible team. I will be in 2025 at all of those events, but that's part of the transition. So we're working to transition into a space where we're offering a lot more events, and really in the transition, we're just wanting to make sure that we nail down the program details, that they're working well, that we know what we need to do in the new cities to which we go. Part of what that is going to lead to is a public health initiative that we're working on, where communities would consider widowhood a community event instead of an individual event, meaning that agencies that interact with widowed people would be willing to be trained in grief literacy, be oriented to the programs of Soaring Spirits, and offer those programs to the people that they serve, so that it's much more likely that someone who is widowed will receive a packet of information about Soaring Spirits without having to desperately search at midnight or 3 a.m. on Google or whatever search engine you use.
I told you about my mother was part of this group before she passed away. It's the Widows Group on Whidbey Island. And it was the largest growing group on Whidbey Island because there's a bunch of old people there. And since men tend to go first, there were a bunch of women that were there. One woman transitioned from the widow to being newly married to the widow to being 3 times.
Wow.
So there's always going to be a need, because we all suffer grief and in a myriad of ways. And I was struck by when somebody says, "Oh, you can find just another one."
Yeah.
No.
Well, I mean, and I want to normalize, like, of course, maybe your life would include another partner. And, mine does. I have been married for almost 14 years, which is almost 3 times the amount of time I was married to Phil. But the thing we have to avoid is offering that as a comfort, as an exchange, right? Like exchange the pain for a new person. Well, that's not how it works. It doesn't work that way. It can't work that way. And if you go into a new relationship expecting that it's going to cure your grief, then you're going to be not only disappointed, but you exponentially increase the pain, because grief can't be put away in a box. You really do have to deal with it. You really do have to find a way to carry it, whatever that unique way is for you, so that if there is a time when you come into a new relationship, you're not expecting that relationship to solve your problems. You're instead welcoming that new relationship into a life you're creating for yourself that addresses the needs that you have now, which are going to be different after the person you love dies.
Where were you when I was 25? That's what I want to know.
We could talk about how old I might have been at that time, but maybe we shouldn't.
I had a high school sweetheart who I dearly, dearly, dearly loved, and then she went and found greener pastures. Are we kind of getting a sense here of anyway? But even though I ended up getting married, had a couple of kids, and stuff like that, it still impacted me. I can't imagine if she had died, what that would have done. That would have been so much more difficult to handle, because it was tough enough.
And the other thing is that people make a lot of assumptions about widowhood, right? Most people's idea of a widowed person, definitely they're older. Sometimes they sit in a rocking chair. Maybe they have a doily on their head. Like they have this really clear picture for some reason. I saw a documentary once where people asked, what does a widowed person look like? I'm not kidding. Some people actually described sitting in the chair with the doily on the head, black dress. And of course, they don't talk about that person being male. They don't talk about that person being other gendered. They don't talk about the possibility of that person being young, because it doesn't occur to us. It doesn't occur to us to expand our definition of widowhood beyond an older woman who enjoyed a marriage of decades. And then her life is over also, by the way. People assume then that means, okay, well, you've had yours. So time for you to ride off into the sunset, however long that takes. And so these assumptions that have built up over time really have a negative impact on widowed people, because if you don't fit the mold, then people don't know what to do with you, because you're not a widowed person. I once did a newspaper article, and the newspaper reporter came first and wrote the article, and then the photographer came. And the photographer came to my door, knocked, and said, "I'm looking for the widowed person, Michele." And I said, "Hi, I'm Michele." And he said, "No, I'm looking for the widow, Michele." Like as if I was not, it couldn't possibly be me. And so, it was both funny and also so reflective of what my life was like. People would say, like, "No, you can't be widowed." Well, that's nice. I wish I could say I wasn't widowed, but turns out he's still dead. I'm still widowed. And though that does not fit the norm, it is my life. And so being able to change the way people think about widowhood is another thing that Soaring Spirits works to do, so that I can represent for people, for example, Kevin, who have had a complicated situation. I had a woman tell me at one of our events that her and her ex-husband lived across the street from each other, had done for 20 years. They'd been divorced for most of that time. And when he died, people said to her, "Oh, I bet you're glad." But they had been co-parenting and best friends living across the street from each other for 20 years. And she said, "There's nowhere for me to grieve. There's nowhere for me to say, I'm going to miss him. No, I couldn't be married to him. No, I didn't want to live in the same house with him. But he was my person." And she said, "This is the first time I've ever been able to say that and not have somebody look at me like I had 3 heads, because we had been divorced for such a long time." And so, human relationships don't fit in neat boxes as much as we might like them to. And when we don't allow those boxes to be broad enough to encompass as many people as possible, we limit the help that we can provide to people who otherwise would be living with that pain and actually thinking there was something wrong with her. And so coming to our programs helped her see, no, that's a totally normal human response to your person, your best friend, dying, even if you couldn't be married to him.
And the other issue is that, and I think we've talked about it before, but it bears repeating. and that is when you are widowed, suddenly you're a party of one.
Hmm.
And so when people invite you to parties,
If
or
they invite you to
if
parties.
well, I can imagine the conversation would go somewhat like this: should we invite Jane? Well, she's alone now,
Yeah.
and she's going to be by herself. I don't know. I don't.
Well,
I
and
don't.
also I think sometimes they think she might be too sad. People definitely said to me, "No, honey, you should smile more." Yeah, I'll work on that. I would like to smile more also. Thank you for reminding me. But it is, and sometimes, it is from the really real place of thinking. Sometimes widowed people just say no all the time, and eventually people stop asking. So they are not prepared to go for all the reasons that they might not. And then they realize, oh my gosh, I said no too many times. And now my friends don't ask me to go anymore. And so it is a cycle that feeds itself that we oftentimes don't. One, we might stop. I had one woman, she was married for 53 years. She was in her 70s, and they had this group of friends. There were, I think, 8 of them or 10 of them, couples that had been friends for their life, and they had specific holidays and traditions that they did. And so one of their holidays was coming up, and she hadn't heard anything about who was hosting. And she was waiting and waiting, and finally reached out and said, "Hey, I haven't heard anything about who's hosting. Where are we going to be? What do you want me to bring?" Well, they hadn't invited her because they were worried about the fact that there would be 9 seats at the table instead of 10. And so things like that happen when people don't understand how, one, hurtful that is, and two, that their discomfort with this person who was their friend for decades. So everyone's grieving, truthfully, but they just didn't know how to grieve in community. And so she was left out because they didn't invite her. And what a way to find out. I think how she found out was that the party had already happened. And they were like, well, we'd invite you because it would have been an odd number and it seemed awkward. So it is the kind of thing that when people hear me say it out loud, they think, oh my gosh, that's awful. And yet sometimes that's how our brains work, and we can justify it in the moment only to later realize how painful it could be. Or, that person has said no so many times that you stop asking. So the lesson for anyone listening is, if your widowed friend says no 100 times, please ask 101, 102, 103, because eventually they're going to say yes. And you're going to be the person who never gave up on them, who continued to give them the opportunity to come until they felt ready to be able to say yes. So 101, keep on counting, just keep on asking. And if they keep on saying no, then ask again.
Rochelle, this is an incredible young lady, isn't she?
Yeah, I am amazed. And I have to say, Michelle, it is absolutely insane to just learn about everything and your perspectives. And I think it's huge for everybody to hear how important it is to stay in community with those people. My grandpa is one of them. And me and my mom, we text him and we're like, hey, just thinking of you. Do you want to pop in? Or, he'll say no so many times that we just show up at his doorstep and just be with him in his presence. Because as you said, I love how you mentioned that everybody around them is also grieving. And it is important to stay together rather than to spread apart. On top of that, being here on this podcast with you and sitting in the room across from my grandma I lost less than a year ago is crazy. I know that she can hear me. I know that she's proud and so thankful for somebody like you who decided to not only stand up for Phil and keep his life going, in a sense, living through you, but also to create so much of a community. And I think a question I would have for you is, what is the best way that you would say you have seen people respond when they do join the community? Do they usually feel all of a sudden at home and relieved, or do you see more of like still that nervousness and sense of like anxious, just being kind of scared?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for your kind words. And I love that you're sitting in your grandma's space, and I have no doubt that she's terribly proud of you.
Thank you.
I have heard everything from, it is normal, first of all, for them to continue to be scared. So as you kind of imply, right, that they might continue to be afraid, what typically happens is they feel like they found a lifeline. And we have had people over and over again say, Soaring Spirits saved my life. I don't know what I would have done or how I would have made my way if I hadn't found this community of support. Because as I said, it's designed to sit beside everything else you do. So we're constantly encouraging people to find, whether it's, whatever activities work for you, if it, whatever physical activities work for you to help you support yourself. We're all about find all the ways. The more support, the better. Soaring Spirits always will sit beside all of those other things and provide you with this big community of people. It's the strangest feeling when someone dies and you feel so alone. And you mentally know 100% you are not the only person who's living with this, that there is probably somebody next door or down the street or around the corner, but you don't have a way to connect with them, and you don't know what to do to find anybody else who's feeling your pain. And so people come to us and feel seen. They feel validated. They feel hopeful, oftentimes for the first time, because they see living examples of people who have been where they are and have made their way forward in a million different ways. So it's a wonderful thing. I tell people, the more people who are a part of our community and the part of our programs, the better, because that increases the likelihood that you, individual person, is going to find somebody here who shares something unique with you that's meaningful to both of you. And my hope for every program is that people go home with 5 phone numbers of people that they could text anytime. We have text streams that have been going on for 10 years, same group of people. And so what happens is death brings us together, in that it is the death of our person who helps us find this community, but it's life that keeps us going, and life that keeps us connected to each other, and the life that we build and we share are the reason that text stream's still going. 10 years later, we wouldn't be still talking about grief, right? They're just talking about all the ways that life has moved forward. And in that text stream, it's safe to say, I'm missing my person today. I went to this place where we used to have lunch every day and it's closed. And who else am I going to tell about that? Oh my gosh, that place closed. We loved that place. That's the kind of thing that happens when you have an ongoing support community, is that through all of what life brings, you have people.
And it's, in addition to that, one of the things that I'm so sorry has to happen, because it would be really, 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 really nice if we were all good people and we were all had our motives were pure, but unfortunately that's not the case. But you do take steps to make sure that people who enter the group are pure of heart and are there for the right reasons, and they're not there to take advantage of people.
Well, I can say, I hope they're pure of heart. I wish that I could see inside people for sure to be able to say that. But what I can say is they are definitely widowed. So what we have built over the years, we've been surprised to discover that people want to pretend to be widowed. And so any of our programs in which you would interact with another person, we go through a process where people are confirmed that they're widowed. And I just also want to give a shout out to people who are thinking, oh dear, how would I ever prove that it was my boyfriend or it was my girlfriend, or, I don't have any death certificate. I don't know, how would I prove that? We give people a lot of opportunities to show us the relationship they had with their person and their death. And so it's not straight just death certificate for those who, for a myriad of reasons, don't have access to that information. It wouldn't preclude you from being able to show your widowhood and participate in our programs.
And if you go to soaringspirits.org, you can find out all the information that you need to get the help that you need. If you have your person exit stage left, as it were, because it happens and it can happen very quickly. Michele, I got to tell you, we were going to run out of time as usual. These go so fast.
They really do.
Is there anything that you would like to add before we close? And then, Michele, I'm going to give you the last word.
I just want to confirm what a beautiful light positive talk radio is in the world, and how grateful I am that you are willing to share with your audience some perspective around what it's like to be widowed, because I hope that all of you will take this in, sort of just think on it. And because I promise you, before you know it, somebody in your wide network is going to say, so-and-so just died. And instead of you thinking to yourself, oh no, that's awful, I just so tragic, and being able to just stop there, you can feel that pain and say, oh, I have something I could offer. And I can tell you that it makes such a huge difference. It makes such a huge difference to feel like you can be a light in the darkness for someone whose life has been altered in a way that you can't and don't want to imagine.
And by the way, if you want to go to the Brushwood Media Network, Michele, we have 1 million listeners a month.
Amazing.
On that platform. And this is a show that will resonate with them, because this is important. This is real life stuff. And I really appreciate the real life stuff that we all go through, and a way for you to fix it, and you can help people through it, and you're doing that. You're just incredible. Michele, you get the last word.
Well, I want to thank everybody for joining in, listening. I hope everybody had something to take from it. Please go help somebody that you know that is in need, even if it's maybe just as simple as being there for them, and giving them the opportunity and the option to be around people and have a community of understanding if you can't be that person for them. And don't take it too hard on yourself. But also, Michele, I loved how you mentioned that it doesn't get any easier. And it doesn't, there's not a time that goes by, and there's nobody that can replace them. It doesn't matter how young or how old you are to be able to know, well, there's still more time, or there's this and that, because life is precious. It can end at any given moment. And I hope that everybody listening, and for us, don't take that for granted. Even being so young, I've dealt with a lot of death, and it has been very recent. In my beginning years, I didn't have too much time where it was like, it was kind of spread out and this and that. It's all right now. It's all happening, and it's continuing. Also to know that when somebody does lose somebody, it doesn't mean they're next. And I think that's very important for people to understand, that just because they've lost somebody, or it may completely shut them down. How my grandpa, he does not come out of his room. He doesn't really engage. He's completely in his own world, but to still be there for him, and also give him that space and give him that time to heal and deal with however that may be, knowing that we're still right there. We're still here to support them. So thank you for everything you do, truly. And I know many, many people that are friends and family that I will be telling about your program, because I may not be able to help them as much as I can be a support, but now that I know there's an option for them to grow and find others that can relate so closely, I will do so. So thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
And
Of course.
by the way, she's 25. That's just not fair. That's just not fair. Michele Hernandez, thank you so much. SoaringSpirits.org. Go there. If you know somebody, help them. Give them that website, and they can go get some help that they need. Michele, thank you so much. Michele, stop being 25. And thank you very much, everybody. Thanks for listening to this episode of Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. Our purpose is to provide everyone with a positive, entertaining, and educational experience. I would love your feedback and comments about the show, including possible topics and great guest suggestions. Please email me at kevin@kmmedia.pro. And remember, be kind to one another because each other's all we've got. That's Kevin